drinking 13 grams of carbs, from fruits and vegetables, and it's fueled my workout to a noticeable level.
That's interesting. I've never done that before, in terms of V8. But I've done that before where, when you told me years ago to do that, where I used to do fasted years ago, and it was horrible. I felt miserable.
Drudgery.
And then I would actually, I did just a little bit, a handful of blueberries, some caffeine, and that made a world of difference. I'm like, wow, I feel amazing. And so it felt like I could do more. Instead of a 20-minute cardio session, could go into 30, and I felt great when I got done.
And you're actually increasing your VO2 max.
Yeah.
You're probably, if you're doing weight training, you're increasing that.
Yeah.
But I even do have general population clients do this. I will say, at least have a rice cake with some peanut butter or something. Just get something, and you'll have a much better workout. So I think that is valid advice for your clients, even if they're not performance-based. You still want them to feel like they're being the most productive they can be and moving forward. So, but at the other end of the day, if it's 2 in the afternoon, which is another common training time, somewhere around there, 2, 3, 4 for me to do my weight training, now I have a decision to make because I could, possibly have eaten lunch an hour and a half earlier, and that's fine. That's still in my stomach being digested. My blood sugar level's fine. I could completely go in there and have a great workout. But if it's been maybe 2 hours or 3 hours, I don't want a full meal. That's going to impede my work. But maybe I need just a little something to stimulate that great workout again. So it's almost like I said, for that, morning time, you can replicate that for the afternoon if that's your training time, and that can be a good pre-workout. If you have extreme muscle goals, you've got clients who are trying to build, a ton of muscle. They have a pretty good metabolism. There's also a need potentially for some protein there. So it might be a scoop of protein powder with a little bit of carbs, and something like that that's a liquid meal could be, easy enough on the GI system to get a good training session in pretty quickly. So, pre-workout meals are always best designed to really fuel performance first and worry about fat loss second. I like to say it like this. Even if your goal is losing body fat, that's your number one priority, or your client's number one priority, when you're training, that's really not a time to worry about fat loss. That's the 1 hour a day, or the one point in your day where it should be all about performance. I mean, you should want the maximum effort you can get and really drive your body into new levels of athleticism. So that's where I don't think I differ from too many people. I think that's more of a consensus now. But I really like to make sure that we're sandwiching those workouts with good pre-workout and post-workout nutrition, and then we can worry about body fat loss the rest of the day.
Now, if you had to pick between which one's more important, pre or post-workout nutrition, which one would you say is more to focus on if you had to focus on one or the other? If you're just busy, which one would you say would be the most important?
It still depends on the time of the day and the context for the person.
Okay.
But my general answer would be pre-workout.
Okay.
And the analogy is, even if you had a great post-workout meal, the best post-workout meal you could have, if you had a shitty workout because you didn't fuel it properly, what good does a good post-workout meal do for you? So it's all about, it's like putting gas in the car before the trip, right? It's like, I want to have the best performance possible. It doesn't mean you have to overcompensate. If my goal is body fat loss, I'm not going to drink a milkshake pre-workout, but it's going to be, like you said, it could be a handful of blueberries, it could be a rice cake with a little peanut butter, it could be a V8, and that's just enough to really make that a tremendous workout.
So what about, like, you have to have now, you probably heard the anabolic window and all that stuff post-workout. What do you think of that? Do you have to eat immediately after and then 2 hours later or 30 minutes later, that kind of thing?
So the first information on that anabolic window, I think, was from Doctors Ivy and Portman. They wrote the book Nutrient Timing, I think, in the 90s. And they really did a lot of research on athletes, some physique sport people, but mainly college athletes. They are down in Texas at a university. And they got in the habit of studying, how can you fuel performance the best and then recover the best. And because they were dealing with collegiate athletes, it was pretty high volumes. So they created the protocol of 75 grams of, you may remember this, like dextrose and maltodextrin and all that stuff. So you saw people all of a sudden adding this, like a scoop or two of protein powder and then maltodextrin, dextrose. And it was just to get that fuel source, that pure sugar, into the muscle as fast as possible for an insulin-driven response, which is good. Like when you want to repair muscle, that's when you want insulin to drive glucose into the muscle cell.
I remember I was piling all that into my shakes after I worked out, but I really found that there was really no difference. Mm-hmm. Is that what you're...
Well, the most current research now shows that the anabolic window of being like minutes is really potentially up to a couple hours. Okay. So as long as you're getting fuel in there. But I will say, if this is the biggest goal of your life, or if your career depended on it, would I still say there's value to immediate recovery? I mean, absolutely, it just makes sense, right? Yeah. If my body just went through this most taxing response, why would I not want to start that refueling and repairing instantly? Right. So there's still value, but I don't think, especially for the general population, it's an issue that we have to force as a rigid rule. If you want to wait till you get home and make a good dinner, that's fine. You don't have to.
It's not like you got to bring all your shakes, and like I did.
Yeah.
Your shakes and powders, and it was ridiculous. Where I look at my bag, I'm like, this is just ridiculous. And then when I figured or found out that you don't really have to do that, you can do it within a couple hours. That by the time I get home, it would be 20, 30 minutes, and I was good. So I was a lot more at peace when that was the case.
So here's an interesting thing. I don't want to confuse you guys, but whether it's a kindergarten teacher or a fireman or an accountant, whoever your clients are, remember that they're coming to you as a fitness and health professional, nutrition consultant, and sometimes they love those little tricky things because they think there's something magical about that. Like you've just given them a secret nobody else knows, right?
Like I told you earlier today, or yesterday, when I asked you years ago, what's your post-workout meal? What would you do for this situation? You're like, well, I do this. I'm like, no. What do you do? And you're like, no, you probably could do this. I'm like, no, you're not understanding. What do you do for like in this situation, like you personally? And then once he told me, it was like, oh, it's cool to know. Oh, that's what Joe does. So I tried it.
So I totally agree with Tyler on this, that for your general population clients, you don't want to make things so cumbersome that they just feel like they can't do it with consistency. Yeah. But sometimes you got people who are totally into it, and this is their new thing, and they really like that. Mm-hmm.
Or you can kind of set them up, and just over time, then get to the point where you're like, all right, now we're going to focus on pre- and post-workout nutrition, and really dig in there. Yeah. And so they think it's like a new thing.
Absolutely.
And then they get kind of motivated and more excited about it. Mm-hmm. And they think it's, this is the next step.
Right. And for the difference in types of training, so let's stick with the persona that somebody's interested most in body fat loss. What about the post-workout meal? I mean, timing is one thing. We were just discussing that. But what about the content of the meal? And research has been very clear so far. There's not a lot of it, so it could change in time. We could get more layers of research in there. But what has been shown, at least several times, is that if you consume protein right after your training, you stop the catabolic process. So you really do start a recovery and repair process. But if you add carbs to that, because like I said, carbs are then stimulating insulin, and that drives that deeper into the muscle cell more easily, then you really accelerate that recovery. And that's why Doctors Portman and Ivy were interested in that. These were college athletes who really needed to not just recover for performance today to feel better, but so they could perform great tomorrow and perform great the next day. And so if my goal is fat loss and I want to spend those carbohydrates somewhere else during the day, I will at least get protein post-workout, and then I can delay those carbs to another meal. But if I'm really interested in recovery and I'm really interested in that anabolic response in my training, then I'm going to put carbs there too. So I really am sandwiching the pre-workout and the post-workout as the most important three meals of the day. And then, like I said, I can worry about fat loss more at the other meals.
That's what I like to do too. Plus, I feel like we talked about this a few weeks ago, where the sugary type carbs around workouts too, you can kind of get away with it a little bit. At least for me, with my metabolic rate is much higher, I can handle that. Where I like having my, my ice creams or my sugary things, or every once in a while, that's where I put it. Is in those meals. I get excited to like work out because I get to have those things.
If you can have dextrin or maltodextrin, just straight sugar, why not get it from a food source you actually like?
I'd rather eat it instead of drink it.
So, you can blame me for the Pop-Tart craze, the Reese's craze, the donut craze, all that, but it was never just to just eat crap. It was to say, if you really want that stuff, this is not only a time where you can get away with it, it actually can be helpful because you have less of a gut load. So, for example, pre-workout, what's going to digest and feel better for my GI system and get that burst of energy I need? Would it be a big bowl of oatmeal or a turkey sandwich, or would it be a Pop-Tart or a single Reese's peanut butter cup?
Pop-Tart.
Yeah, and you're using that energy substrate so quickly that the advantage is it gets into your bloodstream quicker. And I really do find that this is another trick that general population clients like. Like, wow, I can really eat a candy bar. I can eat something like that, and it's healthy. I can do that.
I'm nervous.
And it's like, yeah, that's one of the tricks of the trade. We can do that for the pre-workout. But post-workout is, I would say for a performance type athlete, that's where they can get away with it. I'm not sure I would put a lot of stuff like that into a general population client, because then I feel like you're just missing a chance to build better habits and get better consistency. Somebody like you or I, who are more, we kind of know where we're putting quality and where we're not on purpose. But for somebody that we're really trying to institute or instill those habits, I think, I would limit it to probably pre-workout. So guys, the rest of this chapter, section 3, 4, and 5, are vitamins, minerals, fluids, and electrolytes, diets for physically active people. We've been covering that. There's some information to know. We're not going to go through it all right now, all the different individual vitamins. The textbook does that pretty well. And as I've said all along through this curriculum, we're not trying to trick you with the exam. We want everybody to pass. We want you to know what you need to be competent consultants. So don't get hung up, with memorizing